Hi, welcome to Module 6, Part 2, Working with Families. Our objectives for this module are to provide participants with an understanding of the family unit, community and culture, skills to build effective communication with families, strategies to promote family engagement in the early childhood classroom, and knowledge how to conduct effective parent-teacher conferences. So family engagement can look like a lot of different things. This can be parents assisting in the classroom, helping with fundraising activities, home teaching, which is essentially when you're extending the curriculum into the home. Could mean supplying classroom resources or attending parent education classes. But the important thing about family engagement is that as a teacher, you really need to work on building positive relationships with families, or else family engagement may not actually happen. The purpose of parent involvement is to promote an exchange of ideas, and family members actually can gain a lot by being involved with family engagement, such as developing an understanding of child growth and development, having confidence in their parenting roles, fostering family interactions, learning about their child's experiences in school, learning new ways to positively interact with children, extending learning from the center to home, understanding their child by observing other children, becoming more informed about community resources, and understanding how a center or home partnership can promote their child's development. There are some ways you can encourage family involvement by using written communication, parent-teacher conferences, home visits, discussion groups, and other various family engagement activities that we are going to discuss in this screencast. So the first type or way that you can promote family involvement is through written communication. So this can include newsletters, letters that are sent home, and daily newsflash. And written communication is really popular because they require less time and energy than meetings or multiple phone calls. You should note from our last session that this is definitely one-way communication more often than not. So newsletters are one way that communication can be sent out to families because they can be done electronically or on paper. They can also be just for a classroom, or they could be for the whole entire center, and they can include a whole bunch of different information on a newsletter, which is helpful in getting out multiple messages at one time. The other thing that you can do is letters. So letters can be used to touch base with one parent or an entire group of parents. It is really important that when you're writing a letter that you are considering the family's language and educational level. I think letters can be sent out at the beginning of the school year, they can be sent out in the middle of the school year, they can be sent out whenever there's a change in the center. There's lots of different reasons why you would need to send out a parent letter. A daily newsflash can be an effective tool for communicating with busy parents. So this is when you might just use a whiteboard or something outside of the classroom, and you are just talking about what happened that day, what you guys were talking about as a group. It could also convey information about events. It's really good for parents to have this, as they could use it as a talking point for their children. So parent-teacher conferences are part of what it is that you should be doing as an early childhood educator. Conferences help parents and teachers develop a shared understanding of the children in the classroom. There are 3 phases, and we're going to talk about each of those 3 phases and what goes on during those phases. So planning is first, and this is when you're taking time to gather assessment materials and samples of the child's work. You could use a planning sheet, but some things that you might want to consider collecting information are the daily routines, the type of play and activity preferences for the child, any fine or gross motor skills that they have or might need more support with, social emotional development and relationships with peers, cognitive and language development, and eating and sleeping patterns. Part of the planning process is also checking parent availability. So you may need to send some communication home explaining what the conference goals are, the dates, and ask parents what time is convenient for them. Conferences can be scheduled during nap times, before or after program hours, during lunchtime, or you can just take a day off where you're scheduling a full day where it's only parent-teacher conferences, which I know a lot of programs do. You should make sure that the conference actual physical environment is set up for success. So that it should be private, there should be adult furniture, no interruptions, should create a sense of partnership that you're working together. First impressions that you make with parents are important. Just remember, if you stay calm, parents will too. You should ask open-ended questions that invite a discussion about their child, because this can help you when you're doing curriculum planning. They can usually last about 30 minutes with 10 minutes between each, although in my experience, conferences always tend to go over. So what to expect when you're in the actual conference. So always begin and end the conference with a positive comment. This may require intentional planning on your part so that you know what you're going to say before you go into it. Be a good listener. Make sure you're using positive nonverbal body language. Avoid making general statements or being critical. Always model professional behavior during this time. And watch for signs of heightened emotions, and make sure that you're reassuring parents that information is confidential. There should be some follow-up to the conference, and this really just involves you touching base with the parents or the family again to make sure that the actions that were agreed upon in the conference are being followed through. And this can be as simple as just touching base at pickup or drop-off. So home visits are another way to engage families and family engagement. So as part of Head Start and Early Head Start, for those of you that are in programs, you are actually required to do home visits, but I know a lot of the public school systems in Colorado are also picking up this practice. Home visits really allow the teacher to enter the child's world by spending time together in the family's home. It can also provide helpful information on the family's cultural background and daily life. So that's that funds of knowledge that we talked about in the first part of Module 6. It also helps children build trust and intimacy between the teacher and the child. So I just really briefly want to go over home visits in regards to Head Start. So it is a Head Start requirement. It's done twice a year. It's used for goal setting for the parent and the teacher. And it's really a way for you to become a culturally responsive teacher and create a culturally responsive classroom, because you get to know the children in your care. Phone calls are another way to engage families in family engagement. Using a phone call, you can be sharing something outstanding or interesting. And if you are using phone calls to foster two-way communication, it can build up good feelings as long as you're not only just calling about the negative, but the positive too. So here are some guidelines for making a phone call. You should plan the conversation out carefully, choosing what you're going to say. You should begin the conversation by asking if it's a convenient time to talk. Tell the parent immediately for your reason for your call. I think I would always start these conversations with everything is okay, I just wanted to call, because if not, parents automatically go to the what happened. Make sure you're sharing positive statements about the child and give thanks and a word of praise, so keep it positive. So let's talk briefly about family resources that can be used to help engage families and get them involved in your classroom. So centers should be a place for families to access resources, and this could look like a family resource center, which you are required to have through licensing, a traveling backpack, a problem-solving file, bulletin boards, theme bags. There's all different kinds of ways to do. So family resource center, which is actually going to be something that you are essentially putting together for your portfolio, is going to include resources for parents. So resources in the Family Resource Center can often look like books, brochures, professional articles, magazines, government pamphlets on nutrition, health, and safety. Because families need to be able to access information on child development, child guidance, and community services, because you're the expert, really, and they're looking to you for this type of guidance. So you should have a family resource library somewhere on site. There could also be some available community services that can help parents with prenatal support, meal planning, nutrition, health and dental, trauma and crises information, counseling and housing, and financial assistance for low-income families. So there should also be a lending library, because it's one way that parents can share information that is related to parenting. So bulletin boards are another thing that is often used in centers. I see this a lot in classrooms, and they are used to post meeting dates, newspaper clippings, and other center information events. It should be hung somewhere where it's visible in a well-traveled area so that parents actually will look at it. A traveling backpack is another idea that you could utilize. It's a method for involving children in their child's education. So you could put stuff in it and send it home so that families have things that they can do in the home with their child to continue learning outside of the center. So let's just talk a little bit briefly about parent volunteers. So some parents do like to volunteer in classrooms because it helps foster a sense of connection with their child. They can gain personal satisfaction from this, a better understanding of child and activities that are age appropriate for them, and just experience what it means to be part of a teaching team. The best volunteers are the ones who might have an interest with working with young children, but any parents that have useful talents, you should invite to volunteer into your classroom. So keep parents informed of the opportunities to volunteer, and just notice that they must be dependable, fond of children, and healthy. One way to do this is to make sure that your parent volunteers are trained. So you should have some sort of training session or orientation so that they know the expectations of the classroom and that they have to follow state licensing rules when they're there, discuss their duties, but make sure that you're being very welcoming and be prepared to make a good impression. Parents will only return to the classroom if they feel they are needed, so you need to make sure that their time in there was worthwhile to them. You should develop and post a parent helper schedule and make sure that you're answering questions as needed. One of the biggest things about working with families is this idea of respect and family differences. We all will be working with families from diverse backgrounds that include different languages, cultures, and economic situations. And really, you need to focus on building a positive relationships with family by developing trust and having open and ongoing communication in all the ways that we just discussed in the past two modules. Again, make sure that you are working on collecting your family questionnaires. You only need the majority of what you handed out back. If there's any other questions, we can discuss it at our weekly meeting. Your homework for this week is a competency statement focused on how you will work to establish relationships with families. You have your Check Your Knowledge quiz for Module 6. You are doing your resource collection guide, which I'm going to walk through and provide another screencast on because that one can be tricky. And I'll go over the expectations at that time. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and reach out.